This tiny home village off North Portland Road was a landing point for people like Glenn, living out of an RV and running out of options.
They brought me here, telling me that if I didn't come here, that they were going to just tow my stuff out on the street, and they kind of coerced me into coming here.
That was 6 months ago.
Now they're telling me that I have to give up my RV.
The city of Portland pays for the site. It has 90 shelter units and 70 RV parking spots. Soon, the city is closing the RV parking to make room for more shelter units.
I'm not too sure where all this stems from.
It stems from city budget cuts that forced 2 different tiny home villages to close. The pods from those sites will soon take over where Glenn parks. The city will remove the RVs.
They duped us a little bit for sure.
It's not the time to be closing stuff.
Chris visits friends at the North Portland Road site.
Gives me anxiety myself because, we're all just a step or two away from the same boat,
We're told those in RVs may be offered a tiny home. Glenn says he'll believe that when he sees it.
I'm not even sure that's going to be an option to be able to move into a pod. They haven't even said if that's going to be an option for us. They haven't given us any specific dates, but they know that it's coming down to it real soon.
Okay, the city tells us they stopped accepting RVs at the site in June, and RVs will start being tagged for removal in the fall. And remember, the city has a 120-day limit on shelter stays. A spokesperson tells us only people who have not yet reached that limit or who are granted an extension and are actively engaging in case management and housing services will be offered a tiny home. For everyone else, there is no guarantee of a tiny home, meaning some could end up back on the streets with overnight shelters as the remaining option. And we're told shelter staff has been working since May to transition people into shelter or housing. But a city spokesperson says anyone entering the North Portland Road shelter in their RV did so with the understanding that their participation at the shelter was intended to be a temporary stay while they worked with staff on site to attain longer-term housing, and that their RV would be tagged or towed from the site should they leave the shelter or be exited. Okay, big picture here though, the city is expecting to have capacity for 718 people in its tiny home villages this year. That's about 150 fewer spaces compared to last year, all due to budget cuts. And the North Portland Road site was the only city-sanctioned place left for vehicles to park in Portland. You may remember the city's first of its kind site for people living in vehicles closed 2 years ago. This was it. In Northeast Portland off Sunderland Avenue, out by the airport. City Council chose not to continue funding the site, which would have cost about $2 million. But some of the people staying there were able to move their vehicles to the North Portland Road site, the one now on the verge of closing its vehicle parking. And a woman named Michelle was one of those people. I talked with her last year when she was uncertain where she would end up.
It was really unfair, and it made us feel kind of like tricked. Because when we came in here, we were never told we were risk losing our place. We were told we would get help getting a real place because they just kind of swept us in here and never paid us any kind of mind after that.
Okay, so something I have witnessed over my time reporting on the homeless crisis here is that budget cuts to shelters not only mean potentially more people on the streets, it also means more people losing trust in a system meant to help them. Think about it. Each time a shelter opens, homeless people like Michelle and Glenn move in with high hopes of getting connected to housing and other services. But when the funding falls short and has to close, those staying there are often given little notice and faced with moving into new shelters, meeting new caseworkers, starting the process all over again, or going back to the streets, leading to one reason why many homeless people I've talked with avoid the shelters altogether. But now it's your turn. We want to hear from you. What do you think about the North Portland Road shelter site closing its RV parking? Maybe you or someone you know is impacted by these cuts. Let us know. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090.